Yeah, so let's just begin to settle in. And I was thinking very much, a couple of classes ago, I opened with the just really checking in and slowing down and deepening into an internal listening, an inner focus, a drishti. So in order to really cultivate that and really support that, one of the things that you can experiment with is just begin to listen more to just the tone and the sound of my voice and not so much the words. One of the benefits of this is if we can start to just listen to the sounding, the tonality, it allows us to then see that the the spacing, the spaciousness between the words has just as much potency as the words themselves. So always, this is a very current study on slowing down and resting and exploring the body in all of its nuance and all of its beauty. Now the inquiry of yoga. So I would like to begin by exploring some of the lower joints. And one of the reasons I do this on a consistent basis is because I personally have experienced how powerful it is to keep the knees, the joints of the knees and the ankles open. So I understand that a lot of us feel the contractions in the pelvis and the lower back and the neck and the shoulders, but certainly energetically through these pathways of experience of the body, they're so connected. Not to mention that the foundation of our balance and our gait and the way that we just hold ourselves in the world is very connected to the ankles and the knees. And not to mention balance, yes, which will affect our energy patterns. So just do the best you can with this. And if you don't have a bolster, you can just put some pillows here and it will serve the same purpose. So I'm just going to show this initially from the side. So what I would like you to do is have your bolstering in front of you and just place your knees up on it initially without the toes curled under. So you see that I have my arches open here. And then depending on how you are feeling in your knees, because we know that these are very, very tricky layered ligamented joints. If you need to release or withdraw, it's nice just to come forward. So you can come forward as much as you need to, and there I've released the knees. Yeah. So just be very careful with that. So what I'd like to do to begin here is just take a moment to settle into the knees and really open to the importance and the complexity of this joint capsule, this synovial joint. The synovial fluids lubricating the muscles and the fascia holding and penetrating everything. So just kind of be with this. You could lean back a little bit. So leaning back a little bit, putting the torso weight on the heels, then will obviously compress into the ankles. And if you're not used to doing this, there may be a very uncomfortable stiffness here, but just be with that. just explore what that is. You know, we want the joints to be fluid. We want the joints to be supple. And like I said, this is connected and reverberates all to the other joints in the body throughout the whole system. Good. And then if you need to release here, you might want to take a little release for a moment. And then to make something uncomfortable even more uncomfortable, let's lean forward a bit, and now we'll curl the toes under. Yeah, so we'll curl the toes under. Now I'm going to face you. So, and again, go slowly, be careful. These again are very interesting and delicate and nuanced joints. So the toes are curled under, and again, you can come forward and release if you need. You can bring the weight back a bit, yeah? So find a place if you can settle a bit here, and just let's apply some of this controlled compression to the toes. Then I would like you to take all 10 fingers and just press the tips of the fingers together. And then just begin to kind of press and then pull the palms out while you're pressing. Just make this sort of bellows with the fingers. And then close your eyes and relax and just visualize that this is a very primary connection between the tips of the toes and the tips of the fingers. These pathways of experience, these pathways of life force, the nadis are connecting your energy throughout the system. So the beginnings and the endings of these nadis are fingertips and toes. Good. Yeah, so just press, pump. Now, if you're able to, we're going to come forward. I know you're able to come forward, but I'd like you to come onto your fingers. So we're going to release the toes, let the toes uncurl. We'll release the knees and come onto the fingertips again. So we'll work back into the fingertips again, and then just support your weight here. So we have sort of a very strange sort of tabletop here. You can even bend your elbows and lower some body weight down and kind of feel the pressure into the fingers. A good chance the toe joints may still be reverberating a bit and tingling, but this is just absolutely lovely to do. And it's very important to do as well. A lot of what gets, let's come back now. So we'll come back. This time, do not curl the toes. We'll just come back to the knees again. Yeah, so we'll spend a little bit more time here, not too much. And then just interlock your fingers behind your back, and just, if you could straighten the elbows just to open the shoulder. So now we'll bring the upper body into it. But especially these areas, what I was going to say, ankles, metatarsals, knees, wrists, fingers particularly, often get, if you really study it, it gets misdiagnosed as arthritis early on. And there's a lot of this joint stiffness that is merely the threads of the fascia, the collagen fibers and the elastin fibers, just starting to dehydrate to the point where they start to calcify a bit. So what we're doing is we're bringing movement and warmth and pressure and opening them up so they can rehydrate. So these joints, these pathways of life force and energy are very susceptible to rehydrating. So don't be so quick to diagnose yourself once you start to stiffen, but be patient and work with the body in this way. Okay, good. So let's come forward again, and this time just to release. So feel that release out of the knees and the ankles. And then you can just come off of the bolster. So I'm just climbing off the front of it, and then place the bolster and the pillows in front of you. Ah, yes. And just take a moment to appreciate the release in the knees. And then let's put the legs over the bolster so the knees are relatively straight. You don't have to straighten them. I'd like you to just relax the legs. So you might have a little bit of bend, and just not have the ankles on whatever it is you're using here. And do I have my, I don't have my, well, this is good. So I don't have my yoga strap available, but what I'm going to do is just make a little yoga strap with this blanket. So if you're not able to reach forward and either hold on to your toes or the pads of your feet or the sides of your feet, then it works well to either have a yoga strap or a towel or a blanket to put over. Yeah. So what I would like to do here is get a hold of that. So if you have the yoga strap over or the towel, or you're able to grab the toes, let's see, I think I'll grab the balls of my feet. So here, what I would like you to do is gently just start to pull the feet back and lengthen the spine as if you're going to bring the forehead to the toes. Yeah, as if I say, if you would like to bring the forehead to the toes, feel free to do that. So the reason I'm doing this is this energy here, when we are activating the muscle, we are pushing a little bit, we are finding an edge that we would not be able to hold for a long period of time. This we would call active yoga. So we could bring this energy to almost any asana, very muscular. The muscular tissue now is taking all of this compression we're applying. So just like you to feel this activation of the intrinsic muscles of the low back, the back of the legs, it's all very tight, and we'll just call it yang yoga. Now release all of that. Yeah, so if you have the strap or the towel, the blanket, come on back for a second. Let all that active energy drain. Keep the feet where they are. Now relax the lower back. So it's a softening. Now we're intentionally unengaging these lumbar muscles and just gently coming forward. So now it's no more forehead to the toes, but it's forehead maybe between the calves or between the knees, or just hovering above the legs. So this would now be the tissues of the ligaments, the building blocks of the fascia. No, the fascia is the building blocks of the ligaments, but you know what I mean. So we're just softening into a different kind of way that the body is holding, and just soften here for a bit. And also now we have the capacity to hold this for a relatively long time, whereas with the muscular strength, maybe 6 or 7 breaths and we need to move from pose to pose. So just relax now and just let's just say the ligamental tissues receive the compression instead of the muscles. Another way possibly to explore this is in the first example with the muscular effort. There was indeed effort. We were applying effort. What we're attempting to do in the yin approach is to remove as much effort as possible. So this is why when you come up against something that feels as it's resisting, this is when we want to slow down, support ourselves, and just feel it, and just allow yourself to be present with what you're feeling, but no sense of effort. We're not trying to make a change. We're not trying to alter or manipulate. We're trying to allow our awareness to just sink in and feel and explore and just be open to whatever it is that is happening at the moment. Good. So we can come up from here. And oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is one of the purposes of elevating the legs occasionally in this forward fold is just to bring the pelvis into a different angle. So we're always using the shape of the body, the props, to play with the edges of the range of motion. So this is just a little bit different. And then take that bolstering and pull it closer to you and put either the pillows or the big bolster under your knees and let the soles of the feet just come together. And so again, here now, instead of having the weight of the legs draw us into the hip flexors, we're going to support the femurs coming out of the hips so they're more relaxed and draw the compression more into the lower back. So again, take this very slowly. Again, we're not trying to bring the forehead up towards the toes. We're just allowing the entirety of the spine just to draw us into this lovely, soft forward bend. So this quality of listening that I'm suggesting to minimize to a certain extent the content and listen more for the spaciousness. This can also be applied, certainly to your own thought process, but also to the physical body itself. And I would also suggest to your emotional body. So we don't have to always be hyper focused on the content of our mind, our heart, and our body. And we can be, interested, we can be aware of the content, but we can also start to minimize that interest a bit and feel that within the movement of thought, there is space. Within the movement of an emotion contracting and expanding and shifting and changing, there is space. And certainly within the fabric of the physical body, there's tremendous space. We don't want to always be preoccupied with, point of discomfort or a label of injury or a complicated diagnosis. Sometimes we just want to relax and feel the space in between the content as the content arises and passes. And continuing to allow ourselves always to relax back into the spaciousness of the breath. So in terms of spaciousness, the breath is always our primary teacher. When we feel the breath, when we allow the breath to find its natural rhythm in a balanced rhythm with our metabolism, we can feel the breath just invites, I would almost say creates a spaciousness. So be curious about not only your thoughts and your feelings and your body, but your breath in relationship to your thoughts and your feelings and your body. Okay, so let's come on up now and let's take a bit of a rest. So you can put your stuff aside and open your legs out and lie down, and we'll take a short rest here before we move on. And I just wanted to continue a bit with something that I was sharing a few classes back, and mostly because this is so up for me in my own practice these days, and I've really been feeling just tremendous benefit. So one of the things that I was talking about the other class was this just this practice to begin to question whether your thoughts are useful, certain thoughts. It's because the thoughts have this sort of, droning quality, at least for me sometimes. There's just so many and they feel so packed, and they have this way of announcing themselves with great importance. So to start the practice of questioning the thoughts, yes, it can be very valuable. But another thing that we can add to that is we can start to also question our personas. And I say personas in the plural, personas, these masks that we wear, that we've been cultivating for a very long time, who we think we are. So we can start to question, just as thoughts, we can start to question the personas that we use to interface with each other and the world. And along with that, the self-images that we hold. So these all take a tremendous amount of energy to maintain. Repetitive thoughts that create preoccupations and anxiety, personas that have been being refined and layered and practiced and conditioned since we're small children, and self-images that we project to the world, to others, often without even questioning. So the inquiry, once we start to do this, is what then do we do with the life force that we will free up if we're no longer using that life force to maintain these thoughts of preoccupation, concern, anxiety, and worry, the multiplicity of personas that we hold so dearly, these masks that we are continually using to project the persona to the world, and these self-images that have built up to the point that we start to believe they're who we really are. So the inquiry then is, can I just begin to relax? Can I really begin to question, do I need to use this energy, this precious life force, to maintain all of this false self, this false structure? And then what then do I apply this life force to? And then we also get to see, is this, I won't call it a misuse of life force, because these are just, this is part of life. This is, how we were taught. This is what we know, the self-image, the persona, the repetitive thoughts. But we want to begin to suggest to ourselves that there's a much deeper and much more energy that could be expressed. Could be expressed in relationships, could be expressed in feelings of kindness and compassion, in creativity, if we're no longer using that life force to maintain this sense of false self. This is what I also was mentioning, that this becomes the primary battle, if you will, but that's the language of the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is battling between the fear of no self and the fear of false self. So the yoga is suggesting we start to explore these layers of false self, and then it will free up our life force to continue our exploration along our path. Okay, so let's come on up and big bolster, and a blanket to roll up. And I think I will take the time to also show this with the pillows, because it definitely works, and it works very well, but there's a little more to maybe to understand about it. So what we're going to do is, if you have your bolster, put your bolster out and make a roll that's not much of a roll. So I'm taking this blanket and I'm draping it over the length of the bolster, and I'm only using a very small roll on one end. Yeah. So if your lower back can handle more, then you can do that, but this will be plenty for me. So what I would like you to do is set this up, have a roll at the end where you're going to be sitting on the floor, so your lumbar is going to get some extra compression. Now, if this is too much, too soon, too early, don't even use this. Just use the end of the bolster. Yeah. And then you can bring the roll in. We're going to use the roll 2 more times. I'll just kind of show you what we're going to do, and then we'll talk through it. So what we're going to do here is tuck this into the lower back. I'm sitting on the floor now. Hold the contraption in place, and then begin to ease over it. So even usually before your upper body gets all the way back, you will have an idea if this is accessible to you. Another thing you can do is you can elevate the hips, bring the upper body back, and then start to keep the upper body where it is, and then lower the buttocks to the floor. So this is just pulling in such a lovely way my lumbar and my thoracic spine. Then I've settled the buttocks on the floor, and then I can relax the legs out. Yep. So this would be, you know what? Let me not show the rest of it now, because hopefully you'll just forget about everything I said once you're in this. So this is how it works with the blanket and the bolster. If you want to get into that, you can get into that. And then very simply, if you're using the pillows, what I would suggest is, and the reason this is so tricky, obviously, is because everybody has different pillows too. But what I'm setting up is kind of replicating the bolster. So it's supporting the whole torso. And then I would put my roll on where the end where I would have put it on the bolster. So let me see how this feels since I'm doing both. Yeah, so same thing. Maybe I might roll this blanket up a tiny bit more, but you gauge the amount of compression that feels safe and therapeutic for yourself. And then the main thing is to have the head and the torso supported. Then we let the legs relax out. Yeah, so this is good. So either way, Always, yes, make sure that not only that you feel safe, but that the sensation compression is allowing you to continue to feel safe and relax and really receive it over time and not be on the edge of, is this okay? Is it too much? If you're at that, is this okay? Is it too much? Yes, it's too much. Always better to start lower, lesser, softer, and then build up when the body invites you to do that. I'm not inviting you to this. Your body should be inviting you to this. It's almost as if we want these sensations to have sort of a bitter sweet quality, like kind of like, oh, that's a lot, that's intense. But at the same time, the body is saying, oh, this is just what I need. Thank you. You're giving me attention where attention is needed. You're pressing into this area that's the discomfort, pain are the signs of dehydration. And so you're now massaging in with this compression to begin to rehydrate. This is a slow, a structural process. So we must be committed to patience. Spaciousness of breath, spaciousness of words and sounds in the environment. Spaciousness in your heart, in the primal and ongoing pulsing of your heart. I also want to suggest that the life force that you're not using to project a false self can most certainly then be used for healing. And this is for me, a very, uh, a very deep and authentic definition of healing, or a healthy body, I might say, as a healthy body is a body that can heal itself. So we want to free up this energy that has been contracted into self-imagery. So healing, certainly creativity. This is the essence of all of our creativity is the life force. So to free up the life force allows us to free up our creativity. And I would suggest, and this is from personal experience, it gives us more energy to celebrate and to just simply have fun with life. And I'm not suggesting a technique, I'm not suggesting a philosophy or any kind of belief system. What I'm simply suggesting is the simple and powerful observation of self-inquiry. Are these thoughts, or is this thought useful in this moment? Is this persona I'm projecting useful in this moment? Is this self-image that I seem to believe is real? Is it useful? Sometimes they are, of course, and oftentimes they're not. So we get to, in a way, loosen up. Yes, so yoga, we're loosening, we're opening the joints, we're physically loosening up. We want to loosen up our energy. We want to use this self-inquiry very directly, not make it into a religion, not make it into something we have to memorize and apply. It's just super, super intuitive to start this inquiry, very, very personal. And that's really, the timelessness and the beauty, the poetry of the Bhagavad Gita is that this is, Krishna just trying to explain and educate Arjuna that, maintaining the false self is much more fearful, much more painful than exploring no self and the deeper qualities that we are as awareness and consciousness. So it's a metaphorical journey that really we all take, and that's embedded into almost every experience, or I would say every experience of our life. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we have two more segments of the spine to explore. So we're not gonna necessarily take a lengthy rest, but what I would like you to do is put your feet on the floor, and you may wanna just elevate the hips a couple of inches and make sure everything is good there. And then when you're ready, just roll off of this. So we're gonna need to change the roll. So we might as well come off of this and just curl up and just take a little bit of a rest here. So the curling up now will bring us into a nice little mild forward bend. That's good. And then we'll just take a bit here before we move the the roll once again. And I'll just trust those of you with the pillows will find your way to this, yes? So you use the same pillows that you have and just move the roll the same way I'm showing it here. Okay, good. So let's come on up. And now what I've simply done is I've simply taken the roll from the lumbar end and moved it about 3/4 of the way up on the bolster. So some of this will depend on the length of your torso, but I'll just show you in general what we're doing and then make it work accordingly where we're going to place this in more of the upper back. So what we're going to do then is now we're going to come up and sit on the bolster. So again, if this doesn't work for you and this is not accessible, you can do this without the bolster. Just the end of the bolster will catch the mid back like we often do in the supported fish. This is just bringing a bit more intensity and just a bit more directional as well. So again, feet stay on the floor always till we feel safe and stable. And I'm setting this now in my mid back area and letting the head come on the floor. Yeah. Yeah, so if you need to play with this a little bit, so that was not quite right for me. So I need to roll this blanket up a little more and I need to move it down a little bit more. So I'm now almost at the end, but not quite, yeah? So that's what I'm suggesting. I'm trying to role model how you need to make this work for yourself. Oh yeah, so much better, yeah. So this is right in my mid back, very nice. And now usually we try to bring the shoulders to the floor in this at some point, but no need to do that now. Oh, yeah, because we're a lot higher. So what you will probably want to explore is putting something under your head so the neck doesn't go to a severe angle like this. You know, nothing wrong with this if you have the range of motion, but I think a pillow would be nice. Yeah, good. And then we'll let the legs relax out. So we've got this additional kind of mid-back compression. We're not bringing the shoulders to the floor. That would bring us too far down. Just the back of the head. Now, arms can just be out to the side. They could be over the head a little bit if you like that. Oh, yeah, this is lovely. Okay. And like I said, if you're using the pillows, just bring that up. And you may need to add another pillow or a towel under there. Again, we just want to feel very compressive right at or below the shoulder blades, the head supported on the floor, the legs relaxed out. allowing yourself to relax to a place of effortlessness. And when I suggest that, freeing up some of this life force that is being consumed by holding this false self in place, and we can apply that to our healing processes, I think it really is very important to explore that we don't hold old filtering and programming, that healing is in any way an event, that healing certainly is a process. And it's a process that's deeply personal and intimate to each of us. And it's simply a process between misalignment and alignment. And we can bring this healing into every aspect of our beingness. Obviously, from our physical beingness and things that have come out of alignment, and we're opening to them coming back into alignment. Obviously, our emotions, our mental energies, our relationships, but also our relationship to the cosmos itself, to understand that the whole idea of spirituality, and that's not even an accurate word for it, is simply bringing ourselves back into alignment with the universe, bringing ourselves back into alignment with life itself. And this is the inquiry. Not do I need to adopt certain techniques and diets and philosophies, or remove certain. It's where am I feeling aligned? Where am I feeling out of alignment? And what is that inner outer dance, and how does that feel? And to trust very much that none of the patterns of compensation that all of us hold, absolutely none of them are set in stone. We are fluid and supple, and we are these incredibly intelligent and creative beings of life itself. So maybe just to put those two things together, is that the misalignment, in some ways, that is the patterns of compensation. So when we can start to see a pattern for what it is, we can then determine, is this working for me? Is this pattern holding me in a certain alignment, or is this pattern holding me out of alignment? And how can I then breathe and relax and think and feel to either lean into this pattern, to lean away from this pattern? It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful dance. Okay, so what I want to do next, and I don't often get very tricky in this practice, as most of you know, but this may be a little tricky. And if you're not able to do this the way that I'm suggesting, then you can roll off of it and just manually move the roll. So what I'm suggesting here is to put the feet on the floor and then see if you can, you know what, let's not do that because it's hard to reach the roll. So what we're going to do is we are going to change this manually. So let us indeed roll off of it, which you're probably happy for, to have a little break from this. So feet on the floor, make sure you're good with the muscular tightness if you're feeling some in the mid back. So we'll roll off this once again. Yes. And do take your time, but I'm just going to kind of talk you through it. So we're going to bring this roll back down. Yeah, about 3/4 of the way down. Yeah, so you can sit on the bolster. So now instead of sitting on the floor, if you remember the first time we sat on the floor and we had this all the way down, the roll all the way to the lumbar, this time we're going to sit up on the bolster again, like we just did with the roll in the mid back. This time we brought it back to the lumbar and we're going to settle back in. So we're really going back to the lumbar. And again, we're going to allow the upper body to come back. Yeah, it's just worth all of these gymnastics because this is so lovely. So what I'm hoping might be happening for you, the weight of the upper body draping off the bolster is pulling now. So I can feel the compression of this roll, not only pressing into my lumbar, but kind of tractioning and pulling those vertebrae a bit, which what could be better? You're probably thinking a lot of things could be better, but nothing better than this. So make this work for you. Back of the head on the floor, shoulders draping over, roll here. Again, please adjust if you have the pillows that you're using. And you can play with this again if you want to roll up the blanket a little bit more. If you want to bring the shoulders down a little bit, it's a lovely combination of pressure, direct compression, and a bit of tractioning. This position is good to open the legs a little bit wider than the hips. This will start to encourage the not only the hip bones, but the pelvic area to open and possibly give the sacrum a little bit of room. Okay. This is a journey up and down the spine. very useful to allow any anxiety and tension that you're holding in your mind to actually be able to start to feel that viscerally in the body. We don't want to pretend or ignore that these anxieties and tensions are connected. And so the imagery of this can be just so incredibly beautiful. We just again, it's a creative way to just allow ourselves to sink into this aliveness of the body. This is beyond language, really, and beyond labels and definitions. This is really where the neural tentacles of the mind, they're rooted in the cellular and the molecular depths of the body. And they register every move, every stage of development, every shift in chemical balance, every nuance of your posture and your structure and your function, even. And this is why we cultivate this effortlessness. It's not so much a mechanical, structural process, but just the lack of effort allows us to just relax into the stillness of our center, the stillness of our center, and see, is there anything new, opportunity for something new to arise between these neural pathways and these um, cellular and molecular activities. So let us begin to release this journey up and down the spine. So you again can put your feet on the floor and have some movement. Always move slowly and carefully. Make sure that sort of myofascial balance has come back in, especially compressing the fascia and the muscles. Um, they tend to tighten around that. They're encapsulated by the fascia, they're embedded with the fascia. So we want to make sure they're good. Not really it's just really one thing, but you know what I mean. So once you feel that release, the muscles are good, we can roll off of this. And now let us take a rest here. Yeah, so just make yourself comfortable. We'll take a bit of a rest. And I think at some point, this balance and flow that I was suggesting earlier between misalignment and alignment, and how it's such a nuanced dance, that maybe another way to say it, or something that it opens to, is starting to feel our sense of self as this spaciousness, but that the internal spaciousness and the external spaciousness just become one thing. So this is a very, this is just a very sweet imagery. And obviously, when we're exploring the body in this way, and the body feels contracted, the contraction leads us to believe that we're not internally spacious. And when we look out into the world with anxiety and a sense of control and perfectionism, it appears that the world itself, life itself, is not spacious. So what is our process for this alignment, that we can feel this internal and external spaciousness as one thing? And I can't really say anything specific on how to do this, but one of the things that this yoga, or I'll just say yoga, suggests to me is that it's about cultivating greater and greater sensitivity, recognizing that we are sensitivity itself. Yeah, it's sometimes challenging to, moving quickly and being busy and being in the world, and tasks and agendas and goals seems to be the opposite of sensitivity. But if we slow down enough and we allow the breath to communicate and open and cultivate a sense of freedom, we are sensitivity itself. We are sensitive beings living in a sensitive universe. And when we start to explore this, then that sensitivity becomes the teacher to allow us to then reestablish this alignment. And then we can come back into alignment. That pendulum of misalignment, alignment becomes a much more efficient process. It almost just happens without us having to do anything. It just becomes the natural flow of our life. Okay, so let's come on up, please. And I want to start with a nice open straddle forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to stay here for a time, and then we're going to bring it in a bit. So feel free here to go. Sometimes I suggest not to go to your full range of motion, but let's do that. So whatever your full range of motion is, let's open that up. So this may inhibit coming forward a little bit, but that's okay. So we'll address the hip flexors from one angle, and then we'll bring it in from another angle. So use whatever supports you need here to make sure that you're not going too quickly or past your safe range of motion. So just come on into it. You can relax the lower back a little bit, but with the hips open this wide, it's not necessary to manipulate the lower back into a curve, but just let it relax. So again, we're not trying to stretch to bring the forehead between the feet out front. We can relax the shoulders and the head and the neck down and just soften into it. Good. So let's just come on up. And so now the suggestion is to bring the legs in a bit, just to now come to a very comfortable range of motion for the hip. So not all the way into hip width. So we don't want to begin to internally rotate them, keep them out. So wherever it works for you, but not your full and not hip width. And then the same thing. So now that we relax the hips a bit, you can round the lower spine a little bit more. So that's a very interesting connection that you may want to be aware of. And again, use any support for the upper body coming down. Or sometimes it's nice if you have the range of motion to rest on the elbows. And this way you can pendulate a bit. You can allow the body to go right to your edge and then back away a little bit when you need to. Part of this sensitivity that I was mentioning, it's very, very layered. It's a very, very profound study, sensitivity. But a sensitivity to your experience unfolding as it is. So this is something that we can look at in a very interesting way. And we can look at it from our own sense of physicality, our practice, if you will. We can look at it out into the world, and we can look at it in our relationships. We can also look at it in our spirituality. So we want to have a sense. We want to be at least awake to where is our information coming from. Then we want to understand that information, no matter what, is being filtered. And those filters have been being put in place, layered and layered from childhood. So the sensitivity is how to take a step back from that. Allow yourself to put that dynamic aside, that you are getting all this information, all this input, all this information, all this input. You're filtering it, and then you're having a conditioned reaction. The sensitivity is coming into your direct experience. How is life unfolding? How is your experience unfolding moment to moment? And how sensitive and alive and awake can you be to that? So let's come on up from here. And then I'm going to, we're going to come forward one more time, and we're now going to bring it in. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take the right leg and put it underneath the left leg. We're going to take the left leg and put it over. So this is what we call a shoelace pose. Come forward a little bit if you want to tighten it up. And then we'll just come forward from here. So this is just a nice simple forward bend. We're not going to add a twist to it. If this is not accessible to you, I understand. I do understand this pose cannot be accessible. It wasn't accessible for me for many years. The alternative would just to come into a simple square pose. And the way I'm just doing that, I'm sort of undoing the shoelace and just putting the left leg on top of the right leg. So it certainly targets some of the similar areas, especially the knees and the lumbar, not so much for the hips. So the shoelace just torques into those hips in a lovely way. So if that's not accessible, feel free to do the shoelace pose as well. So either one of those, and we'll come into this. And one of the ways that this is explored in some of the texts, particularly the Upanishads, what I was just saying is some of the imagery and the language is that this can be the difference between being in an awakened state and being in a dream state. That the dream state is just, open to information that just floods us and bombards us from every direction. That it flows and seeps and creeps through all of our filtering. And then we have this experience, this third-hand experience from the input to the filtering to then the experience. This is called the dream state. The awakened state is the immediacy of what's happening. And also the sensitivity. So again, the sensitivity is very subtle and very layered, that immediacy is immediately morphing and shifting. That is nothing to hold on to. And this is the discovery. This is what the early yogis, the rishis, discovered when they received yoga, is that there is nothing to hold on to. There is no present moment to hold on to. It is a flow. It is simply an awareness that is revealing itself. It's very, very beautiful. This is also the language of liberation. This is moksha when we realize that there is nothing to hold on to. It can frighten us and contract us, or it can liberate us. And the yoga is suggesting, even the hatha yoga, even getting into the sensitivity of the body to see what's there, to try to locate it, is just an extreme and a pristine sensitivity to body, to heart, to mind, to world. Okay, so let's come on up, please, if you will. And we're going to try to remember that whether you're in this lovely shoelace or the square that we had the left foot on top or in front. And then what I would like you to do is We're going to rest in between before we do the other side. So I'd like you to make a nice pad for the pelvis. So we're going to come into something restorative. So this is not meant to apply compression. This is meant to cradle the pelvic area, not the lower back. Something to elevate your legs up on and something to support your upper spine. So I would suggest to first just cradle the pelvis. And then when you put your legs out, let's have the legs straight, but not have the heels on the bolster or the pillows. Let the heels relax over there so that compression doesn't build up. And then the main thing is to really settle this blanket so it is right in the back of the pelvis. So no strain in the lower back at all. And then I built a little thing with a pillow and a blanket. But what I'm going to suggest for the neck here is really tuck something under the neck, not so much the back of the head, so the chin can elevate a bit above the forehead. So this is cradling and supporting just the natural curve of the upper spine. If the upper spine is out of alignment, you're not going to fully relax in the shoulders and the neck. So we want to feel like, that's really conforming to this curve of the natural curve of the upper spine. The pelvis is cradled, the legs are out and relaxed, the heels are off any compression, the arms can be out to the side. And certainly one of the primary indications that we are lost in the dream state is wanting more and better experiences. Yeah, so the false self is never ever happy with what's exactly happening in this moment. It doesn't even have access to it. So if we find ourselves wanting more experiences, better experiences, especially when we get to the alleged spiritual realm, where we justify these experiences thinking that bliss and ecstasy and enlightenment is the goal. These are just more experiences. This is a sure sign we're still in the dream state. So the simplicity of our present moment, the simplicity of the immediacy of our experience, the texture of the present, the texture of the raw data that we're receiving moment to moment. This is not about more or better or more refined or evolved experience. It's just about what is. So if you would like to allow your awareness to drift through your legs. So we have the legs elevated and relaxed. And you just notice if there's any feelings of density throughout the legs, any residue of tension. And at the same time, allow your awareness to drift into the area of the pelvis that's supported. And again, see if there's any sensation of density, any residue of tension. And the same thing with the upper spine, the neck, and the shoulder area. Just allow awareness to drift and just notice how this feels at the level of sensation. It doesn't even matter what we call it. And I'd like you to just very naturally, creatively visualize that this density that you may be feeling in the legs, in the pelvis, in the upper spine, that this has taken the form of ice. So there's a density there, there's a solidity there, and you can just feel this, and you can certainly just visualize this. And as you're allowing your awareness to permeate these sensations of density, also allow your breath to permeate these areas of density. And ever so slowly and very naturally, allow the ice throughout the legs, in the pelvis, in the neck and shoulders to begin to turn into, begin to slowly melt into warm water. Warm water. So breath and awareness are saturating into the density of your sensations. Now we're feeling it as a warm water. And just as slowly, we'll now allow the feeling of warm water through the legs and the pelvis and the neck to just naturally start to transform into vapor. And we can now just include the whole body. So instead of a dense and solid body, we now have a body that is morphing from this warm, clean water to vapor. And as the body has this vaporous quality, allow yourself to just intuitively relax, intermingle with the vapor, and see if you can feel or intuit any place that may be out of balance, something out of alignment, something that is calling for alignment, and just feel this. No need to fix it, no need to attend to it, but just feel it. We can drop all the labels of mind and body, heart, drop the labels of process goals, agendas, and just feel that your body has this um, incredible creativity and intelligence to guide you to a state of equilibrium, alignment, and balance. Good. So let's start to slowly move out of this lovely restorative posture. I know there's a good temptation just to stay here. But let's do the other side of that forward bending. So good to put your feet on the floor and maybe sway your hips a little bit. Make sure the pelvis is good. Lovely to give the pelvis this kind of restorative support. And then when you're ready, we can roll out of this lovely cocoon here, and we'll come on up. And so I'd like to do exactly what we did before, only I just want to reverse it. Instead of starting open and bringing it in, I want to start in and then we'll open it. So this time if you're going to do the shoelace, I think I remember we'll have the right leg on top. So we would bring the right leg over. The thing with this pose, make sure you don't sit on this left heel with the right buttocks. And if you want to bring it tighter, you just lean forward and bring the knees in, and then certainly this kind of tightens it up a bit. And again, if this is something you're not open to exploring right now, I understand, just let that right leg come onto that left calf, or even open, yeah? So it's sort of the same, mimicking some of the same qualities of the square. And then we'll come forward here, again, relaxing and softening the lower back. It's so interesting that we can feel that our body is somewhat fragmented, that we have these separate parts, that the foot is somehow separate from the hand, and all of these parts that we like to name and identify. And you feel like if we, fix something here, then everything will be in good shape. But anatomically, the deeper we go into the body, there is no sense of separation, especially when we're looking at these very microtubules of the fascia. There's no cell that's not connected and interconnected and communicating at this level. So I think it's really very beneficial to sometimes just allow that, sink below the surface of the separate parts and feel the body as just this wholeness, this harmonious oneness, because it is. and allow the communication that's happening at a very deep level. Allow yourself to just weave into that. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to analyze it. Allow your your energies to intermingle. Good. So we'll come up from here now, and we'll go to the in between straddle. So not as wide as you're able to, but at a place where your hips can relax and be comfortable. Now we can allow the lumbar to soften a little bit more. Use support if you like. And we'll just come forward here and try not to hold the weight of the head in a way that it puts tension into the neck and particularly the shoulders. Really to let the upper body relax. So if you feel resistance in the lumbar and you settle at an appropriate depth, that's good. But the same thing, if you feel resistance in the neck and the shoulders, by weighting the head, come to an appropriate depth where you can explore that. So if you really want to know life, then you have to study life, and not the world. We're not studying the world. That's a very different thing. Life is life is what is alive, and you are alive. So this is what we endeavor to study, and this is why I've been emphasizing cultivating sensitivity. So this is the self-inquiry. The self-inquiry is the inquiry into the nature of self, the nature of aliveness. So we're studying aliveness. We're studying ourselves as that aliveness, in no way separate from it. And so, yes, we sometimes want to be very discerning in what it is we're studying. What is it that we, or how is it that we cultivate this self-inquiry? Okay, so let's come on up and let's go right back to where we started this very thing by opening the legs to your full range of motion. possibly it will feel a little different. So you always want to be open to noticing that these sort of subtle changes that the body's making. Yeah, and we'll just come forward here for the final time. I think it might have slipped by earlier, but I referenced the breath as communication, connection, and freedom. So then, if we're really going to bring our awareness to this aliveness, then whatever it is, we have to go to the root. So whether it's confusion or fear, contraction, creativity, spirituality, relationship, struggles, suffering, pain, we want to cultivate the capacity to go to the very root of it. And the beautiful teaching, the beautiful suggestion of yoga is that the root is singular, that the root is awareness. So when we're exploring something, don't get inhibited by the content. Don't allow the story to spiral you into another story. Don't allow the story to keep you in the dream state. Go to the root, which is awareness. And from awareness, this is where we observe. This is where we watch the dream and the struggles and the drama unfold. Okay, so let's come on up and let's take a bit of a rest here after all of that. Yes, I think a rest will be good. And then we'll move on a bit. Yeah. So I just want to open the shoulders a bit, especially after that all of that spine, the back line that we did. So what I'm going to suggest is to either pile up some pillows or your large bolster so we can just rest the shoulders on it. So this will not be the mid back. We've done the mid back. So just the shoulders. So relatively simple here. We're just going to let the shoulders rest on the bolstering shoulders. And then as you can see, or maybe not, maybe you're still resting, something for the head. Yeah. And then what I'm going to suggest to start here is to interlock the fingers, and especially since we were pressing those fingers together, to interlock the fingers, and then really take your time here and press the palms up to the ceiling and give yourself some time here to adjust. So you don't force the elbows straight, but if you can bring the elbows close to straight, keep the fingers interlocked, and then without bending the elbows, very slowly, don't worry how far back they go. So we're intentionally creating this resistance by straightening the elbows and keeping the fingers interlocked. And then when you feel like, okay, that's it, just let yourself hover there and be interested. Then obviously this has got some muscular tension in the arms. If they start to fatigue, you can start to bend the elbows and start to release the interlocked fingers. Yeah, so but if you can initially just come as close as you can. And then if you would like to alternate the breath a bit, what I would suggest is take one inhale and fill the lower belly and just notice how that feels. And let the exhale empty way, way down below the belly button, kind of between the belly button and the pubic bone. Let the exhale empty there. And then the next inhale, bring it into the upper chest. So we'll fill the upper chest on one inhale. We'll allow the exhalation to empty into the lower belly. We'll bring the next inhale into the digestive area. Press the belly, let the belly fill up. Let the exhale empty out. So if you would like to just move into that rhythm for a bit, that would be lovely. And then whenever you're ready, you can just release the interlocked fingers and just let the arms intuitively relax over the head. So wherever they want to go, feeling the weight drawing you into wherever it's going into the shoulders. And then if you would like to stay here for a bit, something's interesting, you can continue to explore. You'd like to come out of this and move into your own restorative and restful Shavasana. or if you'd like to sit up with me for a few moments, and we will move towards closing our yoga. And in closing, I would like to move back to our exploration of healing between misalignment and alignment. And I just invite you to take an inner bow, an inner namaste to anything that is challenging, anything that feels blocked, uncomfortable, and also anything that feels nourishing and supportive and celebratory. An inner bow to an inner namaste to the lessons that life has so graciously bestowed upon you. Namaste.